Welcome to the Hundredfold Business Podcast, where Christian men learn how to grow their businesses top line, bottom line, and finish line. And I'm your host, Josh Fonger, founder of For Sale Ventures. And today we have a special guest, Terry Gwaltney. Terry is an entrepreneur, author, and podcast host passionate about building strong cultures through servant leadership. He believes strong culture transforms lives, not just businesses. All right, welcome, Terry. Thanks for being on the show.
Hey, good to be here, Josh. I'm excited.
Yeah, I'm excited about this too. As we were talking, I was just saying how through my guests, I learned so many great insights about how to help my clients, and I think this is going to be another one of those great podcasts. For those of you who don't know Terry, he is an expert on company culture. He's used it to not only grow his own business, but to impact a lot of other businesses. And so today, that'll be really the focus will be how to grow your business, integrating your Christian faith, and specifically on company culture. So today, Terry, can you start off by giving us the backstory? How has God directed your path to get where you are right now?
Oh, wow. I'll give you the short version. Yeah, well, I would start with I've been married 39 years this year, so going on 40 to my childhood sweetheart. Met her when I was in the seventh grade. Biggest gift, obviously, God's given me. She gave me three wonderful kids. Now we have six grandkids. I like to tell people we got married as kids, grew up together, had kids together, and we all kind of grew up together. And it's kind of really what that looked like. There was a whole lot of grace in all of that. From there, I really went straight into the workforce, family business, got into some blue collar, learned some hands-on. uh, Knew that there was a call on my life, and I tried to express that in different ways, um, through a lot of different outreach, just a variety of different things, trying to find like, what is my place? You've created me for something. I feel this eternity placed in my heart. What does that look like? And so, I delved into stuff that we did with ministry and then business, um, and a variety of different businesses, and ultimately ended up in the construction trade where we're at today. And that's where those worlds both collided. That's where my Christian worldview and my faith, I began to realize that they were not compartmentalized. They were one and the same. So it wasn't a sacred day on Sunday and a secular day 6 days a week. It was one and the same. I was carrying God's presence wherever I went, and it just began to change the approach that I took towards life and towards business.
So, what does that look like today? How involved are you currently? This is a roofing business, right? Roofing construction business. How involved are you in the business
Yes.
today?
Well, I'm still very involved. I basically deal a lot now with long-term planning, strategic planning, some of our HR stuff. I'm still very involved in who we invite to join the team. I have two sons that are running the company, because I have a lot of other interests and endeavors. We have a remodeling company, then we have a roofing company, we have a wedding venue, we have a retreat center. There's a variety of things I have my hands in. They handle a lot of the day to day. I'm still very involved, but I write a lot too. So I enjoy working. So I very much still have my fingerprints kind of all over what we're doing.
Okay, and so the work that you did in your construction business, I believe that was the impetus for you writing the book, uh, the Culture-neer. So
Yeah.
maybe you can explain what is that term and what did that look like in that business?
Yeah. Well, that term came about was I felt like there was everybody understood culture was important, but you could ask 10 different people and get 10 different definitions. And so I had seen how it had been transformational in our business and in my personal life and in the lives of the people that were on our team. And so when I felt led to really go write that, when I started looking for names for the book, I realized even though there was all this ambiguity around what it really means, there'd been a whole lot of people that had wrote on that, and there was virtually no titles left. Every good title that I came up with, I found was taken somewhere. And so Culture-neer came out of creating a word, culture and pioneer. So a cultural pioneer, and I just created my own word. That's where the name came from. And but I think in a lot of ways for people in business thinking in terms of how do I integrate my Christian faith into the culture of business, uh, you really do have to be somewhat of a pioneer because there's not a lot of training out there on that. And so my desire was kind of the bookends of that. Like I began to realize the responsibility that I had for the people that I was leading and understanding that I had more time with these people than their pastor did. And people work for me 40, 50, 60 hours a week that I'm seeing. And, if they're a believer, they're sitting in church for an hour and a half a week. That was a lot of responsibility. And I also felt like, that there was a tremendous opportunity to help them discover their purpose. I feel like part of my purpose is helping other people discover theirs. And so, well, what do you do with that? And so that leads to kind of community impact. So all these things kind of begin to tie together. And that's what we tried to accomplish in the book. And then just break it and make it practical. That all sounds great, but like, I'm just trying to not be audited by the IRS, be able to pay my taxes and make payroll this week. That's great when I get to be a 10 million or $50 million company, I'll focus on that and getting people to understand, no, the basis of all that is foundational. It's not icing on the cake. It's not an extra expense. It's an investment. It's not somewhere in the future. It's now. And so that was the real desire behind taking, what I had learned firsthand and what people had poured into my life and passing it on.
Yeah. And I spent quite a few of my early years in the 20s at construction sites as a project manager. And I would say the culture wasn't always great out there in the field.
Yeah.
So in the construction trailers. So what was that like to be a pioneer with this culture? Did you start off with a clean slate, bringing on your own team, or did you jump into a company that already had their own culture and you had to transform it? How did that look?
Well, fortunately for me, every one of these have been companies that I've started. And so, but how we look at culture and how we're intentional about implementing it today obviously is much different than what it would have been 20 years ago. And so there was people that had to change through the process as we begin to change, as we become more selective, we become more intentional, and we raise the bar as far as how much more we expected. Everybody's not going to make that change, but it is far easier. If you're listening today, as you're starting a company, obviously you need to rewind this thing all the way back to, mission, vision, core values before you ever hire your first person, because that tells you what that person should look like, what their attributes, how they're going to fit your culture, all of that. So you can do it. It's harder when you get this revelation and you look around. I got 50 employees, and now I'm going to bring about change. It's a slow turning of the ship. Just because you got the great idea today doesn't mean it's all going to be implemented tomorrow.
So what would be the practical steps of creating a great company culture? You mentioned a few things, vision, mission, core values. Where did you start, and what are some practical steps that people could do to integrate those into their company?
Well, I think if we're talking to an audience that already has a company, is that who I'm speaking to about
Yeah.
this? It's slightly different. The very first thing I would do would be do an assessment of the culture in your company now. And I would start with my leaders. And so do an assessment of your own company, you being the leader. The architect of the future of the company uh, lives in the theater of the mind of the owner, which is why you're the visionary, which is why you're the one that has the long-term strategic plan. And so do an assessment of what you feel like it looks like for yourself in that company. And then go to your key leaders, depending on the size of that company, and have them take that independently and compare notes. And that's exactly where you start, because it's like in the church world, if it's not clear in the pulpit, it'll never be clear in the pew. And if that vision and that mission is not crystal clear in your leadership and your influencers, then it's definitely not going to be in the people that are sitting in the cubicles or out in the trucks or wherever the case might be in your organization. And so that's your starting point. It's not where I think it is, not where I hope it is. It's like, where is the reality? This is the reality of my culture. The culture will only be as healthy as the leader. So you start with the leader and then go to the next round of leadership team. And are you guys on the same page? And
So
then,
then how do you transform, I guess, yourself first and your leadership team? Is there a certain series of exercises you go through? Do you just give them the Bible and say, "Hey, let's start reading this," or what? What are the steps to alter people's minds and cultures internally?
Well, I think you have to take them back. I think almost everything starts with vision, and we know vision leaks. And so vision has to be something that you're constantly leading people with. And so maybe for some people listening today, you need to go back, like ask yourself why. Why did you go in business to begin with? You know, if the only reason you went into business was to make money, you probably ought to go to work for somebody else. But if that why has a deeper meaning than that, then you take the people that you've gathered around you and point them back to the why. Yes, we need to, we'll tell people at our business, listen, it should be a given that if you're here with us for a decade or you spend your entire career here with us, that you made good money. But at the end of the day, how we're going to measure success is at the end of that, if you're a male working here, were you a better father? Were you a better husband? Were you a better leader? We can check those three boxes, plus you made good money. That's success for us. And so why did you go into business? You know, And so once you figure out the why you went into business and you bring your people back to that, then how do we do business? See, core values are not something that hangs on a wall. Core values are the filter by which I make all those decisions when I'm not in the presence of my boss, which is why it's so important that the people that, that are working for you understand what your core values are. Well, I spent 3 days away trying to figure out what my core values are. No, no, wait a minute. What are your values? Is integrity important to you? Is what you do with you. Did you build your business on keeping your word? Integrity is important to you then. Okay. Integrity is doing what's right when no one else is looking. Isn't that what you want your employees to do? So just process through what are those things that are valuable to you when you make a decision. And then when you go to add the first person to your team, you're looking for those same values. They have a shared value. I can teach a skill. I can't teach character. And so I need to go back to the people that are on my team and remind them our mission statement is how we do this. Our vision is where we're going to end up. That's the big picture of what we're marching towards. But how we do it, that's our mission statement. So I'd start with those leaders and get them all on the same page because those leaders have been entrusted with influence that they need to be able to take everybody, including the person driving the forklift or mopping the floor, and be able to say, I want you to understand what you do today. When you're cleaning this place and people come in here, I want you to understand how important that is to the vision. You have influence on the first impression of how we're going to treat someone else's property by how well we've taken care of ours. And I want you to understand it's more today than, mopping this floor, and it's more than, painting these walls. And you need to connect purpose to every position. Your leaders have to do that, and they have to train that so they can scale that.
How do you go about practically training it so it can scale? Because I think that as your team gets from 10 to 20 to 50 or 100 people, and you as the owner are talking regularly to your leadership team, how does that translate? What are the mechanics of making that translate and actually stick with everybody?
Well, again, it goes back to your leaders. Your leaders have to be able to duplicate themselves. So your leaders still have to be close to what's going on, our world out in the field. And so you don't want it watered down from every level. And so when we're talking leadership, we're teaching servant leadership. So if you think about the traditional corporate pyramid in our organization, we use that, but we invert it. So it's upside down. Great. You want the career path to figure out how to be promoted? Understand what that means. More responsibility, more people to serve, more people that's accountable to you. It's not about the best office, the best parking place, and just more money. Do it well with more responsibility, more money will follow, but understand the heart behind that. And so if my leaders have got that, they're duplicating themselves and it becomes scalable because as they pour themselves into someone else, then they're also using things like intentionality. People repeat what you reward. And so I'm looking for those opportunities to encourage, that behavior by what I'm rewarding, what I'm recognizing publicly.
So, how do you go about selecting a winning team? Because you mentioned that it's difficult to teach this character, it's difficult to train character. So, I'm assuming a lot of it comes down to just selecting the right people.
It does. I'll be honest. Like for us, we select one out of 100 people. Um, and so, interviewing processes, lengths of the interview can be varied from organization to organization. For us, it's about a four-step process, but there's three things that we're looking for. Character being the number one. And really for us in this order, it almost seems backwards with the second and the third one, but it's character, it's cultural fit, and it's competence. Um, you know, if the character's not there, I can't train that. So I need someone that I have a basis that I can build on. So they got to check the character box. They got to check the culture box. Otherwise, they're going to be rowing in opposite direction of everybody I've got here. And it doesn't matter what kind of rock star they are. If they're an island into themselves, their attitude will undermine everything that I've worked to build. And so we'll pass on people, that have the performance and the experience. And then, they have to have the competency. And so for us, we believe we can train anybody. So we intentionally usually don't hire anybody from our industry. We're looking for the character and will they fit the team we've got? And we believe in the system we have to be able to train the other guys. So long as they have intelligence, I don't need experience. There's a difference between competence and experience. And checking those three boxes. And then you go selecting that. The other thing that we do that I think is valuable to that is for us, we're not selecting people for a job. I'm looking for a commitment. So we're selecting people only looking for a career. So our first interview process is we're very upfront. We're not looking for anybody looking for a job. Oh, no, no, no. I'm looking for a career. Great. Every position that we apply, from the receptionist to accounting, to the salesperson, is a 2-year commitment. I'm not asking for a 2-year commitment right now, but if we make it through this whole interview process, we're going to. Reason we do that, we only promote from within. And we're going to invest a ton into you that we will not get back if you're only here 6 months. We're looking for people. Potential is not what you are, it's what you can become. And we're going to invest a lot in you. We're going to demand a bunch from you. But after you're here, what you're going to hear is people will say, I feel like I'm a part of a family, a brotherhood. It's the camaraderie because we're united here far more than around a paycheck. We're united here around purpose. You start weeding out people very fast when you start talking that way.
What have been some of the reactions? Are they just afraid or like, well, what is this? I'm going to go down the street and work somewhere else. I mean, what is the normal reaction, or are they ready for it and they're inspired and they're excited about it? I mean, how does it work?
Well, well, normally, yes, it's the latter. Normally, they feel like, that's really what I'm looking for. I've had a job. Now that you talk about it like that, I'm looking for a career. And honestly, I don't want to keep jumping around. I want to find a place, where I can stay and build something. And so, and everybody's not willing to follow that through. But initially, for most people, that really is where they're at. That sounds like something I haven't experienced. It also, the other part of that is like, I've interviewed at 3 other companies in 10 minutes. We've been on here 50 minutes. Yeah, we're not just looking for anybody. In other words, they understand like this is different. I feel like you really value people and people probably aren't just a number there. So it's a big investment on our part, but we lose very few people from their standpoint going through that. Most of it becomes obvious to us for some reason that they're probably not a good fit.
Yeah, and I've seen other companies where the construction trade specifically, they have the opposite approach. Whereas, hey, just don't even interview. Just throw them out there in the field. If they last a few days and they actually show up to work on time, okay, then we'll think about maybe actually giving them a job. But until they prove themselves, why even bother? And so they kind of invert your process, and I don't think
Yeah.
it works out very well.
No, it really doesn't. It's predominant in our industry. One of the things that we'll tell, especially our guys that are more of our craftsmen, is guys, you need to remember today, you're craftsman and professional going out serving ladies and gentlemen. And most of the time, what you see in a blue collar industry in the construction space is guys that learn with their hands and they're proud to step back and look at what they built. They feel ill prepared and unequipped to be able to communicate from a professional standpoint. And I said, you don't have to choose one or the other. So we expect you to look professional. We expect you to talk professional. We expect you to be able to communicate with a homeowner, just like a salesman would, as well as be a craftsman. Because today it's not just customers and clients, it's ladies and gentlemen. So keep that in your mind today as you go out there. And so you raise the bar because you start speaking into purpose on what they can be. Yeah, you don't have to talk like that. You don't have to use that kind of language just because you're on a job site. You don't have to look sloppy. You don't have to be out there smoking cigarettes and your truck be a disaster when you show up. Have some self-respect, as far as how you handle yourself. And People will rise up to your expectations most of the time when they know that you have their best interest at heart.
So that's a big transformation, I'm sure, for a lot of people in the field. Based on my experience with a lot of clients like that. I think it's great though. I think you're definitely elevating the bar, and some of them are rising to the occasion. You're discipling and growing people. How do you, as a Christian, integrate your faith? Because I'm assuming that a lot of the employees that come your way
Mhm.
are not Christians. So how does that intertwine?
Well, I think one is you earn the right and the respect to be heard. And so, in a good culture, people need to understand that you value them as a person. They also need to understand that you're interested in them in all aspects of their life. And so, part of our approach and part of the culture, as far as how we approach it, is very holistic. And I don't mean holy like godly holy, even though that's a part of it, but I'm talking about in the entire person. And so, if they're dealing with a mother-in-law that has got his health issues at home, it's affecting them when they come to work. So you need to show some empathy and be concerned with that. They've got a problem going on in their marriage. You need to be concerned with that. It's going to be your problem. You say, well, that's just not my problem. Oh, really? Have you ever had a guy that worked for you that you hired and was a rock star? 6 months before he got divorced and 6 months after, you didn't have the same guy. He was showing up for work, but he mentally wasn't fully engaged. There's too much going on in his life. So you're going to deal with that one way or the other. The difference is, are you going to invest in it and be proactive? And so that not only helps you and your organization, but it builds so much loyalty amongst your people because it's reiterating to them like this is more. This is more than just dollars and cents, and this really is about relationship here. When you take that approach, your customer service in any industry goes through the roof because I don't have to have a bunch of managers micromanaging somebody that's simply working a job and looking at a time clock. I've got people that are thinking like an entrepreneur and an owner because they realize this person that trusts me, give me a job, takes care of me, invests in me. This is important to them. So now this is important to me. And your customer experience will never rise above the level of your employee experience. We're spending so much money, like how do we make the customer experience better? You need to work it backwards. How do you make the employee experience better? Because that will bleed all the way through to the customer experience.
It's like you've kind of reversed the worldly logic, both in terms of that, but also in terms of the uh, leadership, as in, hey, it's an upside down pyramid. So as you lead, you're actually going to be more responsible and serving more. And the upside, I really like that picture, the upside down pyramid, and that's great. I mean, obviously, to think kingdom minded or Christ like is to think contrary to the world. And I also, and for those listening, I think a big part of your success is long term thinking, eternal thinking, legacy thinking. Whereas entrepreneurs who are really interested in making that quick buck, making it faster, they think so short term. Hey, it'll be easier to do it this way. It'll be faster to do it this way. I'll get more profit sooner if I do it kind of cutting corners. And for you, you've had more of a long-term framework. And I think that's something hopefully a lot of people are catching on. Now, how long does it actually take? So let's say you do bring on that person who have the competence and the character, but not really much training yet and not much experience yet. I mean, you have to invest. So how long is the ROI? How long does it take to get that ROI compared to someone who just, finds someone quick?
Well, I think it depends on the position. There's a lot of factors, the position, the person, and all that. But I can tell you, as far as being absorbed into our culture and starting to see the influence of that on a person that's here, I see it the first 90 days. It is so black and white difference from where most people have come from. And the other aspect of that is when your culture is healthy, it also self-polices itself. You have to have an organization where you have a employee manual that's 3 inches thick and a bunch of regulations. And don't get me wrong, we need those things. But generally, the size of the book determines the health of the culture. If you're having to legislate everything through rules and regulations, then that ought to be a warning sign that the culture is not as healthy as it could be. So, like one of our core values is no gossip. So, guys, know you don't talk about what you make it work, and nobody else talks about what they make it work. And if you have a problem, it goes up. And then if you have a compliment, it can go out. Other than that, you don't have the conversation about your problem with someone that doesn't have the authority to fix it. And so, not too common in a normal workplace. We've worked way too hard to have a culture that's healthy, to have somebody new come in and poison it. And so those guys will shut that down really quick. Whoa, whoa, you, that may have been okay at your last job. That ain't cool here. We don't do that. You don't want to get caught doing that. That's no, we don't go there. And so it polices itself. And so there's so many benefits to the culture being healthy and your people being bought in, that affects your bottom line. It's fast and fragile. It's slow and steady. You got to figure out what you want, but that influence almost has an immediate impact. I'll share this. We have time. One of the things that's probably been key for us is we do something every 3 months that we call Life 360. And it basically is instead of just an evaluation, we like to refer to it as being a job sculpting. And so it's an opportunity to sit down every 12 weeks with the same set of, the same assessment. And we'll take our folks through 6 different areas. And I intentionally do this in the last interview that we do. And I tell people, if this is uncomfortable for you, we are not the right place for you, because we're going to do this about every 3 months. And what's interesting about our last interview is if you're engaged or married, we're doing it with your wife there or your husband, depending on what the role is. And we basically take the 6 major quadrants of these people's lives, and they all begin with an F. We keep it simple, and we'll ask them a question on a scale of 1 to 10. Give us your assessment of how you're doing in areas like, how are you doing in the area of your family, your immediate family? Well, I'd say, how are you doing in the area of your fitness? How are you doing just in the area of your friend zone? Like socially, how are you doing with that? How are you doing in the area of your finances? We're a 6 or we're a 3. How are you doing in the area of faith, whatever that is for you? We'll go through all 6 and they'll rate them. And then we'll go back and look at them every 12 weeks. Now, what we do with that information is not a pass or fail. What we'll tell them is like, we're invested in you as an entire person, not just what you're doing at work. And we'll take that information, and the Life 360 is kind of like a wheel. It can get out of balance. And so I noticed the last time we was looking at that, you were scoring your family time and your family, at a 7. Your finances were like at a 3. Looks like they're, inverted this time. It's exactly the opposite. And your finances are like a 7 or 8. If you're telling me your family time's at a 3, what happens is the balance of, yeah, I've been spending a little bit too much time at work and I just haven't been able to figure out what the balance is. Okay. Well, we need to focus on that because we need you to be healthy all around. This is about long-term longevity. We're not in this to win a sprint. This is a marathon. We'll also take that information though, and we'll offer resources to our company. Generally, we'll take the entire company through a book once a year, and we'll carve out time in our weekly meetings just to spend a few minutes of that talking about that subject matter. And those usually have to do with relationships. The last one we did was about, how about being a better dad. We did one that we give books to the husband and the wife. They read them parallel, and it was about their relationships, or it was the 5 love languages, or it was how to manage their money. Not things that made them better at work, just things that invested into their life that made them better, and they showed up better at work. And we also have a chaplain. It's one of the things we did about 3 years ago is we hired a chaplain outside as a service, to be able to provide those services to our people. Again, all those things just speak like these people care more about me than just what I can do for them.
Yeah. Wow. I think just hearing those practical examples of what does it actually look like to care for people, and it's not just a paycheck, and it's not just a safe working environment. There's a lot more to a person.
Yeah.
And I think that's great. Now, I wanted to get this question. I think this is another part of your kind of your business success and focusing on people, is that it also impacts the community. So, how does your business get involved in the community you work in as well?
Yeah. So we set aside a percentage of everything that comes in and we just create a fund with that. And then we look for ways to have impact. We want the people in the communities we serve. We're in 3 different states. And we want them to wake up every day. We know when we're waking up every day, how do we win the hearts of our customers every single day? That's one of our kind of our mantras. And so I think we do that as we give back. And how do we demonstrate that? For us, we don't want to just write checks to good causes. Every business has somebody like, hey, would you donate to this? This is a great cause. We want it to be transformational. So again, we did things a little bit unorthodox. We bought a concession trailer like you would see at a state fair or a mobile food kitchen. We had a new one, custom design, built it. And so we look for opportunities to take that and go cook food and give it away at certain times a year. Or we'll take that and we will sell food out of that, partner with a nonprofit and give them the proceeds from that. What that does is not only does it get us into the community and helps us give back, but what it really does is it gives opportunity for the people that work for us and their families to see the end result of that giving, which impacts their life. And it also inspires them to go do something else. Last year, we had a custom smoker and barbecue grill created. One of those things like 26 feet long, and it's got rotisseries on it where we can cook multiple things. It's got cast iron pots that are 40 gallons each, and it's got a grill on it and a propane. And but we're able to smoke turkeys and hams and give to police departments and partner with other organizations around Thanksgiving. But it's our people that are out there doing it. And so that becomes the transformational part. It's not just that we're helping those people in the community with a check, we're changing lives and we're also connecting purpose. Guys, when you go out there and do what you do every day, that's what makes this possible. So remember, when you go out there today, it's more than about driving and a hammer and the saw that you're using. You know, buy a roof from us, change a life. It's another one of our mantras. Buy a roof, change a life, because you're helping us do that.
Wow. Well, Terry, this has been really inspiring, and I hope everyone listening has some ideas, some creativity going in their mind right now. Where they're thinking, how can I do that in my business, whether it's an accounting firm or it's a construction company or whatever the company is, or dental office. What can I do that not only shapes and molds the character of my people, but how also to then shape the community that I'm in and be that light. Now, I want to end with a final question that I ask everybody who's on the show, which is for the Christian business owner, the guy who's listening to this and who's inspired, is excited, but for him, he hasn't fully embraced integrating his faith into his work, doesn't know how, he's on the fence. What would be your encouragement to how he can get started?
I would just say look in the mirror and start with exactly where you're at today. You have people that are looking to you for direction. You're probably, if you're a person of faith, you're already living your life a certain way. People already know that you're different. And so just begin to raise the level of awareness of that, like the why. This is why I'm different. This is why this is important to us as an organization. This is why it's important that we take care of our customers. Go back to the why again and use that as a segue to begin to implement that into your conversations, with your own people. They already know you're different. Explain to them the why. That's where I would start.
Perfect. Great. Totally agree. Now, again, everyone who's listening to the show, I want to thank Terry. Thank you for being on the show. This has been a powerful message, an important one. Where can people go to find out more about you, your books, your podcast? Where should they go, Terry?
The easiest place would just be go to terrygwaltney.com. And I would encourage you, there's two things on there when you get there. There's an assessment that's free that you can sign up for real quick. It's just going to give you like 10 of those questions we talked about. Start that assessment with yourself about your culture. The second thing is you can sign up for daily cultural tips. So every single day we send out a tip to the people that are on that email list about how you can take that tip and implement it in the culture of your business. And it really transcends really every kind of industry and organization because they're principles. They're not just specific to our industry.
Perfect. No, that's great. I'm going to go there right after this this recording, and I've got a client in mind where that's how we've developed a habit for him every morning as he's driving to work. He has a notepad there to what is the way he's going to integrate, his culture, his beliefs into his work, and just as a reminder. So this is going to be a great resource. All right,
That's
everybody.
awesome.
We'll stay tuned for the next episode. We'll be talking again how to grow your hundredfold business, one that glorifies God as it grows. And if you need help with your business specifically, you can reach out to me directly at fourthsoilventures.com. Again, Terry, thanks for being on the show, and thanks for the audience. Thanks for being here, and grace be with you, brothers.